He took another wheezing breath, and when his eyes came open again, there were tears in them. The smell of smoke was getting stronger, and it was becoming uncomfortably hot in the hall. "There was a girl," he said. "Rachel. I think I loved her. I don't know. I don't really even know her." His eyes looked away, embarrassed. "Anton," Annie said, touching his face gently. "It's okay." "No," he said. "It's not. She was only 15. Annie was unable to hold back her look of shock, and it was obvious that he caught it. "No, it wasn't like that. I never did anything to her." He was crying out right now. We were friends, that's all. I never let it get out of hand. We talked online." Annie smiled at him gently. "Anton, it's okay to have a friend." "No," he said again. "Lied about my age. I lied because I can't talk to my women my own age. I wanted her, Annie. I fantasized about it. Fantasized about doing bad things with her." "But you didn't," Annie said. "No," he agreed. "But I wanted to. That's bad enough." She threw her arms around his neck and kissed his cheek tenderly. "It's okay, Anton. We're all fucked up sometimes." He nodded against her shoulder, wincing in pain and despair. "I don't want to be fucked up this time, Annie," he said. "No," she whispered against his ear. "No, this time you were the good guy, Anton." He forced a smile and sighed. "Annie, please." She nodded this time, drawing away from him, amazed at her daring. Tabby turned away, crying herself now. With her good arm, she lifted the axe into the air, taking careful aim. Anton's eyes closed. In the final second, hers did too. The two women limped away together, leaving Anton's corpse behind. The fire was spreading all through the first floor now, stealing into the walls like a pack of wraiths, taking back once again the prize it had claimed 40 years ago. "We need to get outside," Annie said. "But the snow," Tabby said, "will freeze to death. You're in no shape to travel." "It's better than our chances in here," Annie told her. They wouldn't make it outside, however. As they turned toward the front entrance, they found David there, waiting for them. He was just standing there, almost lazily, with his gun in his hand. "I think that went pretty well," he said. "What?" Annie said, looking at him with disdain. "Anton, you did a good job there, Annie. Everyone is going to be very impressed." "Everyone who?" she said. "What the hell are you talking about, David? Who are you?" He flashed a broad smile and waved his gun at them, motioning them back the way they came. He did not actually point the gun, but his meaning was implied just the same. "Not now," he said. "We don't have the time." Tabby's face broke into an angry snarl. "Why are you doing this?" He shrugged. "I have to. This is what we're here for." They both looked at him, perplexed by what he was saying, but he just shook his head as if it wasn't worth the effort of explaining. "It doesn't matter," he said, waving the gun again. "Get moving." "Where do you want us to go?" Annie asked. "The basement," he said, as if the answer should have been obvious to her. "It's the only part of the building that the fire won't burn." He herded them toward the basement stairs and down into the boiler room, switching on a flashlight as they stepped into the darkness. Before the light came on, she could see that there was an illumination coming from the open door to the secret chamber. From the way it flickered, it was easy to see that it was candlelight. Someone was down there, waiting for them. As they slid through into the little chamber, a man turned to look at them, his face breaking into a grin that you might give an old friend upon seeing them after a long hiatus. "Finally! I can't wait to get started. How have you been, Annie?" he asked. It was Chase Lawrence. "What the hell is going on here?" Annie asked, pulling herself from Tabby's side and standing on her own 2 feet as a subconscious act of defiance to the situation. "An inception," Chase said, his smile becoming wide and warm. "The unification of the seed of God with a perfect vessel." David stepped forward and placed the claustrum and the Book of Edumbrel verses on the altar in front of Chase. Upon seeing the hated pyramid, Annie's throat went dry, and there was a sudden, sharp pain in her stomach. "Thank you, brother," Chase told David, and David stepped to his side, gun in hand. "We really don't need the other one anymore, do we?" David asked, motioning with his gun at Tabby. Tabby's eyes went wide. "What?" she asked. "What do you mean, don't need me?" "Shut the fuck up," David told her. "There's so much anger in you," Chase said. "Don't give me that shit. That bitch almost broke my arm," David said, waving his gun wildly. Tabby flinched with each flick of his wrist. Chase shrugged. "Do what you will," he said simply. Without another word, David brought the gun up, pointed it at Tabby's face from less than 3 feet away, and pulled the trigger. There was a pop like a firecracker going off, and she fell like a marionette whose strings had suddenly been cut. Annie dropped to her knees, ignoring the pain from her various wounds. "Tabby! Tabby!" she cried. Tabby's eyes were open and staring. A neat red hole had been punched right above her left eye. She hardly looked wounded at all, but the back of her head told a far different story. Her long plait of blonde hair had turned shockingly dark. It looked black in the flickering candlelight. She was dead. Annie was alone now. Of the 5 who come to this terrible place, only she remained. Fear gripped her, but it was like an old friend now. She rose mutinously to her feet and faced the 2 men. The look in Chase's eyes was mystifying, but unmistakable. It was a look of reverence. "I've got news for you," she said, her voice taking on a hard edge. "Kill us if you want to. You've already missed the chance for your little inception. Your vessel's upstairs, tied up and probably dead by now. Burned alive. Your buddy here helped us do it." Chase laughed. He actually threw his head back and laughed. It was disturbingly sane and full of amusement. "That thing? That creature is not the vessel. It's just a tool. A favored pet of the Isotech. The pure vessel must be a thing devoid of guilt and remorse. That creature is tortured by everything it does. Guilt is its eternity. Guilt is the very thing that twisted its form." Annie stared at him, uncomprehending. He beamed at her. "You, Annie," he said. "You are the vessel." "That can't be," she said. "Oh, it can, and it is," he said, nodding. "In fact, we crafted you as such." He motioned at David, and David came forward. He grabbed Annie around the shoulders and led her to the strange rack, where she had imagined she'd seen the dismembered corpse. She wondered now, after everything she'd seen, if that had been her imagination after all. She hardly fought as he attached the manacles. She knew the man could easily overpower her in her current state. The battle she would be waging now was one of will. "We read your book," she said. "It said the vessel was forged in fire and kills without remorse." "And so you were, and you do," Chase said, turning to face her. "Your whole life has been about fire. The fear of it. What it did to your life. Everything you are was forged by that experience." "But I don't kill..." She stopped herself. "Don't you?" Chase asked, cocking his head. She knew what he was about to say before he even said it. "You killed Anton. Not out of anger or some misguided emotion, but out of mercy. It was an act of love. There's no remorse in that. Moreover, you've been purified by pain, both physical and mental. But most important of all, you are the vessel because you desire it to be so. Your body has changed its form to accept the seed of the Isotech." Chase came forward and knelt before her. He opened the buttons of her blouse, exposing her stomach. She saw now that it was swollen and distended. Her navel had begun to push forward. Suddenly the things he said hit her. The things that could not be suddenly held weight. She thrashed against her bonds wildly. He placed his hand on her shoulder to calm her. "Peace," he said simply. "Your trial is at an end. You are to be as Mother Mary to our Messiah. You Are AI Sotek's chosen